Hockey Inside Out, presented to you by the Montreal Gazette.
Welcome to the Hockey Inside Out Show. I'm Montreal Gazette sports editor Stu Cowan, joined by regulars Chris Nilan and Jack Todd, and a special guest this week. We have John Bartlett, the voice of the Canadiens, formerly with TSN Radio and now with Sportsnet. That wasn't a pretty game against Buffalo the other night, John. Are certain games tougher to call than others when it's getting awake up there in the booth?
Yeah, sometimes they can be, but that was one of those games. I think that was a dangerous trap game for the Canadiens with Buffalo, and right now Canadiens fans are shaking their heads going, how did you lose to the Sabres? Well, now you know how Bruins fans have felt all those years when the Canadiens always foiled them, right? That's exactly what it is. It's that one team that's got their number. You can't figure out why, but the Sabres do right now, and it was a game that I thought Buffalo may come out and give the Canadiens a tough time, and they did. So kudos to the Sabres for ending their 14-game losing streak.
If there's one thing I think it showed, Chris, it showed, Carey Price being talked about a Hart Trophy candidate. He had a little bit of a slow first period, and they couldn't rebound from it.
Well, I wouldn't give him, he had one goal he maybe should have had back, but come on, when you have three guys below the goal line on the first one, Lazella coming in late, leaving a guy wide open in front of the net, they just weren't ready to play. They didn't play well down below the dots in the first period, and it cost them. They left Carey Price exposed.
I know Bodog came out with odds this week. The Habs are 12-1 to win the Stanley Cup. Jack, the only teams ahead of them are Anaheim at 6-1, Chicago 6-1, and St. Louis 9-1. I don't know if I'm taking that bet.
I don't know. Like last week, TSN was telling us that Winnipeg was the third best team in the league before they fell apart. I definitely don't buy that. There are too many weaknesses. You miss that big guy up front, the third defensive pair. There are holes. Carey Price, I don't think he can win 16 games by himself.
It's sort of like Groundhog Day, John. I mean, there's slow starts after slow starts every game. What can Terry do, or how do you...
Yeah, the slow starts are a bit of concern for sure because you don't come out of the gate with that jump that you want. And last game against Buffalo would have been a situation you would have thought they would have come out with a little jump and get that early lead. I think the biggest concern for the Canadiens, though, and Jack talks a bit about it when you talk about the holes in the lineup right now, it's the secondary scoring. And the game against the Sabres, as good as Jonas Enroth was, that's a game you need to have guys like Lars Eller putting the puck in the net. Jurgi Sakac hasn't scored in a while, and all the goals lately have come from Pacioretty, Galchenyuk, and a few from Subban at the line. And that's the problem right now. And I think if the Canadiens are going to move forward and want to have a good playoff run, you've got to have scoring from those other lines, and you need secondary scoring, and they're not getting that right now, and that's the concern. And when you look at the lineup, too, and this is no disrespect to Dale Weiss, I think he's been a great player and does a lot of good things. But to me, the Canadiens' strongest lineup is when they had a fourth line of Brandon Prust, Manny Malhotra, and Dale Weiss, because that was a very deadly fourth line. They could skate, they could hit, and cause some traffic in the opposing zone. Since Parenteau's been out hurt and they've rotated a few other youngsters in, you haven't had that line. Weiss up on the top line. It's not the same. You haven't had the scoring punch. So whatever it is, the Canadiens need to figure it out. If they have that kind of a fourth line going again, it means the top three lines are producing offensively, and that's where they're going to get the help that they need right now.
Do you put some of this on the coach, Chris? Has Michel Therrien maybe plateaued as coach?
Put it all on the coach. Hang him. Get him out of town. No, but part of it's personnel, and again, you look at last night in the third period, how many times they shot the puck over the net or missed the net. They had an opportunity to tie the game, but that's what happens when you're playing from behind. More pressure, gripping the stick, PK over the net, Plekanec over the net, Lazella all alone. He hit the organist, I think.
Right on a slap shot.
It's unbelievable, but part of it's systematically, and the players, again, they seem not to be ready first periods, like we said. I wouldn't think you'd see that happen in the playoffs. They're lucky they have a cushion right now, and they're going to be in the playoffs. Honestly, I don't think we'll see that problem in the playoffs.
I hope not. They need to get Eller going. If they don't get him going pretty soon, I'm ready to call Gauthier back and fire him again.
Well, let me throw this out to you guys as a curiosity, because the Canadiens, obviously, Mark Bergevin is going to look to upgrade somewhere. Probably on the right wing. If you look at the lineup, that's the most likely spot they'd want to shop for something. So you're going to have to give up something. Do you think Lars Eller at all is trade bait for the Canadiens? Or are they still, because you've got a little bit of a logjam down the middle. It's going to be tough to move Desharnais, and I don't think you want to. You've got Galchenyuk. Eventually you're going to want back at center, and you go up and down that center ice position. Is Lars Eller a potential trade bait?
Well, you look at him, he's one guy who looks like he has a high ceiling. When Eller plays well, he plays so well. He looks like he could be a star, and then he just vanishes for a third of a season or something. But I'm sure there's some GM out there who's going to say, we can turn him around, he'll be a number 1 or 2 centerman for us.
Bergevin may want to get rid of that contract with Eller, too.
He could, and again, Lars Eller, there's one thing, he works hard, right? He tries, I know that, but I think his vision, his hockey sense, he's not good with the puck, he makes bad decisions. And there's times you see him, and oh my God, that's the guy we want. But it's few and far between. So, yeah, he could be trade bait.
His wife says he can't dance.
Well, I certainly agree with John about the secondary scoring too. Like the Habs need it. Like when you're just getting consistency from Pacioretty, Galchenyuk, and Subban of late. He's right. The goal's got to come from somewhere else, and that's a lot of pressure on Max to score goals when you don't get them from anywhere else.
I guess if there was one bright spot about the Buffalo game, you got to feel a little happy for Brian Giunta. That's got to be the highlight of his season this year, coming in and beating.
Yeah, I think it was, and he'll probably describe the goal he scored as a top-shelf rocket on a breakaway or something. He was joking about that afterwards. But no, obviously, for the Sabres, that was an important win last night, and not just for Brian Giunta, I think for Josh Georges as well. That was his return to Montreal, and no doubt all the players knew it in the room. And I think they wanted to have a big night for both of them, because it would be a special night and a bit of a emotional night at the same time. The last time Josh Georges played as a visitor at the Bell Center was January 2006 when he was with the San Jose Sharks as a youngster. Yeah, so I think it was a very special night for him, and that's a win that Buffalo can take. And apparently, by the way, they came from Vancouver early to have their rookie party dinner in Montreal. So if you're the Sabres right now, are you saying, hey, Coach, I think we should go into every city 2 days early and have a good rookie party? And then we're going to go
Paris, baby. Does it every time. Chez Paris.
We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. The Sabres got the win against the Canadiens. Josh Georges, however, was -1, is now the -28, the worst plus-minus in the league. I know on your radio show, Chris, you were talking about was Emelin or Georges, who would be a better fit right now with the Canadiens?
Well, I still go with Emelin. And we say right now he's not playing well. There's no question about it. But we know how he can play. And I truly believe that Alexei Emelin in a playoff series against Boston is just so valuable, just for the mere fact that he always locks horns with Milan Lucic. And believe me, if he wasn't in there in that series, it's a whole different series for Boston. I think they perk up a little bit. So, and not that Josh Georges can't do that job, but he wouldn't have the same effect as Alexei Emelin.
A bit of a rough debut for Jacob de la Rose. His first game in the NHL as a 19-year-old, -2. He only had 12 minutes of ice time. Your thoughts watching him from up in the booth?
Well, I think it was tough for him in his first NHL game to play like that, and especially in that kind of a game where I think the Canadiens themselves are having a little trouble. But you know what? I think he's got a lot of promise. I like his size. I think when he fills out more, he's going to be a bit of a player there, and that's okay. I mean, it's his first game. Get it under your belt and show what you can do. And I think he's progressed very well in Hamilton this year, especially since the World Juniors. They like where he's going. So I thought, a bit of a tough first period, but the whole team had the tough first period. He's getting adjusted. I do like what I see from him, though, and I think there's good potential there, especially with his size.
Well, I like that he tied for the team lead in hits, Mr. Cherry. Please note, a Swede.
Well, it's nice that they called up someone that's taller than 5'9".
His first game in the NHL, what were your butterflies like, your first game?
Oh, it's incredible. In Atlanta, I was nervous as all hell. It was a nerve-wracking game. I had like 2 shifts a period, didn't play a whole lot. Everything I learned in the American Hockey League and did, I forgot that night. I did. And I quickly got it back the next night in Philadelphia and had my first fight in the NHL, and I got an assist. So I felt like I was going after the scoring race.
Now, John, you must have been nervous your first game calling a game in the NHL. What was that like for you?
I wasn't so much nervous as excited, I think. I was looking forward to it. It was one of those situations where the excitement built up as the day went on, and then when it finally got to the game, it was like, let's just drop the puck and go. And just like a player, it's the same thing. You can have all the build-up you want, but once the puck drops and the game starts, you're doing the same thing. And so I think that was sort of, that moment is just kind of like, let's just get the game going, and then everything will feel natural.
Now, the game against Buffalo, Jack, they had Dolores, Thomas, and Dumas all in the lineup.
Yeah.
Hamilton Bulldogs. Is maybe the GM showcasing some of what he has on the farm for a potential trade?
I think I was thinking of that actually during the game last night because I figured there's got to be some reason they're all here. I sure hope it's not Delarose that they're showcasing, but yeah, I think so. I think it's pretty clear they've got to make some moves. Bergevin pulled off a brilliant one last year, bringing in Vanek. Everybody forgets Vanek was actually terrific for the balance of the regular season. Totally went into the tank in the playoffs, but he was part of the reason they finished as high as they did. I expect Bergevin to pull another one out of the hat.
Yeah, and don't be surprised if they bring in someone that's on the last year of their contract too, or something where you're looking at it going, whoa, this might be a bit of a rental. Vanek was a rental that worked out and didn't cost them that much. I know, as Jack said, it didn't work out in the playoffs, but he was a rental that didn't cost them too much and helped them on that stretch drive to get there. So it wouldn't surprise me if they did something like that.
You know what I love about him? He never gives up anything to get what he gets.
Well,
yeah.
That's
you look
the
at
thing. He wants to stick to his plan of building this team moving forward. And he don't want to give up any of those key assets to get something short term, or maybe, we'll make a run for the cup this year. I think he's thinking more long term, and he's looking realistically at their opportunity to win the Stanley Cup this year. Yeah, I know he'd like to, but honestly, I don't think they're going to beat it.
Now, is that song, Reunited and It Feels So Good? Max Pacioretty and David Desharnais back together again in the third period against Buffalo. They actually looked pretty good.
I was actually sitting there just about to, had my laptop, I was just about to write, if there's one guy who's going to get a goal to get them back in this game, it's going to be Desharnais. And before I started typing, I look up and he's celebrating the goal.
I hate when that happens. Now, also in the end, Patrick Coletta runs Carey Price, sort of accidentally on purpose. Is it a concern, Chris, that the Canadiens are protecting Carey Price?
Well, you're in a position there, you're losing a game, you want to win it, and honestly, guys, I think they're scared to take a penalty in that situation, where I wouldn't have been.
That's my next question.
But it's true. Like, I wouldn't have been. I would have done it and deal with it later. If the coach wants to give me crap for that, fine. I'm sure the goalie would have given me a hug. The way they were playing, I mean, come on. They shouldn't have been in the position they were in. They were. I would have liked to seen someone do something.
No, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just because a little similar to the way Kreider went into Price too.
Yeah, it was accidentally on purpose, right?
Yeah, and then you go and you start to wonder: are you going in because you fell? Are you going because you tripped? Or
that wasn't an accident?
Yeah, are you making a good effort to get out of the way? And maybe not.
Now, you mentioned Kreider, the game against the Rangers there last week. He sort of challenged PK. PK didn't drop the gloves. A mistake on PK's part, Jack, or?
Oh, I don't think so. He can't be in the box for 5 minutes. In a tight game like that, where and as important as he is to that team, it's too bad he's a strong guy. He can't fight much. Maybe he should spend some time taking lessons with this guy.
I think he did the right thing. It's stupid to fight a guy with a mask on to begin with. I just think that's foolish. I wish the NHL allowed guys to take their helmets off and fight. If they allow fighting, I mean, come on, it's crazy. All he would need to do, one punch, and it cuts his hand wide open, and then he's out. So, yeah, it's good he didn't fight him.
Playing against a guy like PK would have driven you crazy, I think, when you were there, no?
Possibly.
Now, John is the voice of the Canadiens. Growing up, were you a Habs fan? Or?
Yeah, I grew up a Habs fan, and my grandfather had season tickets at the Forum for over 50 years. My first game was at the Forum, and a lot of my great memories of going to games was at the Forum and stuff. So yeah, I grew up a Habs fan all my life. So.
And the Habs win it.
Yeah, not last night, but yeah, sometimes they do.
Jack, you grew up in Nebraska. You were telling me about your first real-life experience with hockey, your first game.
Oh, yeah, it was getting to the game late when my girlfriend had tickets, just getting into our seats, afternoon game against the Blackhawks. Dennis Hall crosses the blue line, takes a pass from his brother, and this slap shot, we're right behind Dryden, about 5 rows up, and it's just crack, slap. Oh, man, this is hockey? And I instantly went from a basketball fan to a hockey fan. One shot.
Greatest sport in the world. That's it for this week. We'll be back next week with another Hockey Inside Out show.